So now you've got the song that will never go away out of your head. You will catch yourself singing it. You'll catch yourself humming it, whether you're driving or sitting in class or as you're falling asleep at night. You'll hear me sing it a lot. Debits on the left, credits on the right. You'll hear me say that repeatedly. If any of you want to sing it in the microphone, feel free. It'll be on the recording. But really, it's that simple. You know left and right, but now you know left means debit, right means credit. And we talked about this one yesterday. I showed this to you yesterday, so I'm not going to go into much detail. But we know that there's all these accounts. We have supplies, we have cash, we have prepaid insurance, we have liabilities and owner's equities and all that. All of them now can be made into little tiny baby T's that have left and right sides or debit or credit sides. And that's what I'm going to teach you, how all of this is impacted. Again, the video will be available on my website for your viewing pleasure. So a little bit more about debits and credits. We know that debits mean left and credit means right. But what you need to know is that there always needs to be at least one debit and at least one credit. Sometimes there's more, but no matter what, your debits always have to equal your credits. If you think about the transaction thing that we did in chapter 1, your sides always needed to equal. Well, secretly you were debiting, crediting, you didn't even know it. Because you were putting some stuff on the left side, you were putting some stuff on the right side, and you didn't even know, like when, for example, we bought supplies using cash, you'd see supplies go up and cash go down. Well, you were debiting and crediting, you didn't even know it. One thing that the book doesn't talk about much, but it's kind of the written rule, you always, always, always do the debit first. So as you do a transaction, which we don't get into those until the second section of the chapter, you always debit first. Now, debit doesn't necessarily mean up or down. Debit just means left. Okay. And then always remember it's 2 or more. Even though it's called double entry, 2 or more. We know that sometimes there are 3 accounts impacted. Can you guys give me the transaction example that there'd be 3 accounts impacted, not 2? Can you guys remember that from chapter 1? How about if we do a partial payment, but then we put the rest on account? Or let's say a customer, we sell something, so that's revenue. They give us a little bit of cash, but then they charge the rest. That would be the 2 or more. There's 3 accounts there. This should be in your notes, the supplemental notes. Okay. Now, here's our accounting equation. Assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. And if you have a highlighter, maybe it'd be a good place to use it. Here is the giant T. Giant T. You've been doing this for chapter 1. It's a giant T. Is there a left and right side to the giant T? There is. Here's our left side of the T. What's the only thing on the left side of the T? Assets. Here's our right side of the T. There's actually 2 things there, liabilities and owner's equity. Okay, so I know left and right. What word goes with left? Debits on the left, credits on the right. Okay, so knowing what we know from chapter 1, we have a giant T that has a left and right side. Another word that goes with left is debits. Another word that goes with right are credits. Okay, now let's take that same concept and focus in on the little t's. Give me an example of an asset, the most liquid asset. Cash. Okay, I'd like you to write cash in there. We see a T account. We learned that each account has like a little T account. Is there a left and right side to this little baby t now? Oh, there is. Okay, we're going to just write that in. Left, right. What's the accounting word for left? Debit on the left, credit on the right. Okay, you're going to hear me sing that until you are sick of it. Okay, so not only does Allo have a giant T with a left and right side, but each account has a T with little mini left and right sides. Give me another asset. What's another one? What else do we own? Accounts receivable. Well, I can't touch those like I can touch my cash pile. What do I own with an account receivable? I own the right to eventually getting paid. Give me another one. What else do we own? Supplies. Kate, I heard you say equipment. Okay, there's more. There's way more. You're going to learn about more. My question to you is this. Are those all on the left side of the big T? Do they all have a left and a right side? Yeah, just like cash, there's a left and there's a right side. So that means in accounting terms, debit and credit. Could I keep going? And it gets a little bit repetitive. Assets are on the left side of the big T. So that means they're debit-based accounts, meaning anytime we debit them, an asset increasing is a debit. An asset decreasing is a credit. I'll get to the other side when the reverse is true for liabilities and equity. When you know this, then you get accounting. There's the wrap. Okay. So an asset increasing is a debit. An asset decreasing is a credit. That's the same all the way down. What's the easiest way to remember this? Assets are on the left side of the big T. Left means debit. Each of these have a left side. So that's where the debit is, or that's where the increase is. I tend to use stars. I like to star what they call the normal balance side. So anytime I see an increase, a plus, or a star, that means the normal balance side. So because the assets are on the left side of the big T, all the little mini left sides are the increase. I starred it, I up arrowed it, or I can put plus signs. Opposite of the star is where it's reduced. Okay, so let me just play this out. I'm running out of pen color here. Let's say I bought supplies using cash for $100. What did I gain? Supplies. So am I going to put 100 on the debit or the credit side if I gained supplies? It's a debit to supplies for $100 because an asset increasing is a debit. How do I know that? Anytime I'm on the left side of the big T, I'm putting a left side in the mini T, and we know that that's where the normal balance is because it's all left or debit. What did I lose? What asset did I lose if I bought supplies for $100 using cash? Okay, so is the cash going to be debited or credited? Credited, so I'm going to put 100, but I'm going to put a minus there. You're going to get so good that later on, if you know that cash is credited, it's got to be a minus. But we're going to use pluses and minuses and stars and arrows till you get used to it. Dual accounting, I see one debit, I see one credit. Do my debits equal my credits right now? I have $100 debit equaling $100 credit. Should we keep going? Let's go to the liability side. Okay. This is going to start to sound a little bit redundant, but let's look at the big T. The big T has a left and a right side. In accounting terms, we know that means debit and credit. You might be interested in knowing how they're abbreviated. Debits are usually DR, like a doctor. Credits are usually CR. I just thought I better say that because sometimes I just go into that mode with, and students are like, what? Okay, so give me two liabilities. Give me two names of liabilities. Accounts payable, and what's more of a long-term notes payable? Gosh, you guys are good. Maybe just put short-term, long-term, just so you remember. I see two baby T's. Is there a left and a right side on each of those T's? Absolutely there is. I see a right side, I see a left side. I see a right side, I see a left side. Oh, I did that backwards. Oh my gosh. You might be like Mars. What's happening? I see a left side, I see a right side. I see a left side, I see a right side. Debits on the left, credits on the right. Debit left, credit right, debit left, credit right. Okay. Even though we're on the right side of the big T, each little baby T still has a left and right side. We are on the right side of that big T, so where do you think the normal balance side is on the baby T's? On the credit side. That is where the increase happens, or the star, or the plus. That's where the increase, or the star, or the plus. Why? What? Credit on the other side meant down. You mean to tell me I crossed that big vertical line of aloe and now credit means plus? So what you need to know is debits mean left, credits mean right, but they don't necessarily always mean up and down because it matters which side of the giant T you're on. So what do you think debit means for these two? Down. Well, what the heck? Debit meant increase over here. Why do we see the change? Because we've gone to the right side of the big T. I'm just going to quickly put cash in here. I don't want to confuse you, but I just want to show you. Okay, remember I've got debits on the left, credits on the right, debit left, credit right, debit left, credit right, but here's the increase, here's the decrease. What if I pay cash on account? I'm paying my bill, $100. Okay, I'm going to always do the debit first. Okay, so I'm going to put my debit first, but I see a down arrow. What's going to happen to cash if I paid cash? It's going to go down. I had a debit, so this one has to be a credit. But if I'm paying cash, yeah, it's going down. That's why I always teach students, start with either the one you know or start with the debit. Okay, if I paid cash, I know that's the credit, so then the other one has to be a debit. But you know what? Isn't that a good thing if I got my AP down a little bit? Let's talk owner's equity a minute. Owner's equity is a little bit tricky. Repetitive, here I come. I see my giant aloe T. I see a left side, I see a right side. Debits on the left, credits on the right. Okay, liabilities had which kind of normal balance side? A left or a right? Right, or credits. What do you think the owner's equities are going to be? It's on the right side of the big T. So it's probably right. What's another word for right in accounting? Credit. Okay, now be careful here. There's two naughty accounts. One of them's capital. One of them's revenue. I'm going to stop right there. Do you remember, and I'm going to move this recording a minute, do you remember the expanded accounting equation? It was plus capital minus drawing plus revenue minus expenses. Do you guys remember the expanded accounting equation? Okay. I'm going to put plus capital plus revenue. Drawing, expenses, those are minuses. Now, here's where it gets a little bit confusing, and I might lose a couple of you, but we'll talk more about it tomorrow. Question, yes or no, do each of these mini T's have a left and right side? Left, 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 right, 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 right. Debits on the left, credits on the right. And I know you know this, but write them all in. I'm on the right side of the big T. Where is the increase going to be? On the right side of the little t's. I'm on the right side of the big T. So the right sides are the plus minus star. Stop here though. That's the normal balance side because it's on the right side of the big T. The baby T's are the plus side. Okay, so let's talk about a capital a minute. If credit is the increase, what's the decrease? Debit. For revenue, if credit's the increase, debit's the decrease. Tell me about these two. Please square those like I just did. Do they make overall owner's equity go down? So if I credit that, that would make owner's equity go up. These are what I call naughty accounts. That's the Marsism here. You'll never hear the book call these the naughty accounts. They don't follow the left and right rules. Because if I would put, if the owner withdraws $1,000, and don't write this in, but if the owner withdraws $1,000 and I put it on the credit side, is that making owner's equity go up or down? Up, but that's not true. Okay, the owner is taking $1,000 out. If I credit it, it makes his overall worth go up, but if I debit it, now it's following that minus. So the reason I call them naughty accounts is that they don't play by the same debit and credit rules. So you know how it's on the right side of the big T and you would think the increase or the normal balance side is right? No, it's actually left. And some of you are like, what? I still don't get this, and now you're changing the rules. Trust me, trust the process. You saw that if I credited $1,000, it's making the owner's equity go up. That's not true. If the owner takes $1,000 out, we gotta debit that because it's offsetting it. Same thing if I pay the light bill. If I pay the light bill for $1,000 on the credit side, it's making them overall go up. So the reason these are naughty is they don't follow the big left and right rules. So the debit is the increase, the credit is the decrease. Let me tell you the wrap again. We know that debit's on the left, credit's on the right. We know that now. There's a giant T that drives the left and the right sides. We know there's two naughty accounts. Let's put them on the back burner. I don't want to confuse you. But then you heard him say an asset increasing is a debit. An asset is decreasing is a credit. The reverse is true for liabilities and equity. If you get this, then you get accounting, okay? So just remember this giant T left, those are normal balance debits. Right, they're normal balance credits, except these naughties, the naughty accounts. So we keep going. What's our time? You feel this is going to take us a couple days? Yeah. Okay, I've been doing some of these as we go, but I thought it would be helpful. And just right on the back page of that T thing that we had, it's right on the back thing. Okay, so you don't have this anywhere in your notes, so just add it somewhere. There's no OE right here, but let's put in our accounts first. Cash, supplies, accounts payable. These two assets, cash and supplies, are on the left side of the big T. They still have a left, which is a debit. They still have a right, which is a credit. Left, which is debit. Right, which is credit. Accounts payable has a tiny little left and right side, which we know is debit and credit. However, we've crossed the divide. Our two assets, the normal balance sides are on the left because assets are on the left of the big T. So that's where you're going to see the increase or the plus. An asset increasing is a debit. An asset decreasing is a credit. The reverse is true for liabilities and equity. So we cross that big divide. Now we're all of a sudden on a right side. So that's where the increase or normal balance is. I like to put all of that messy bit of notes in, because then all of a sudden when we have to do a transaction or two of them like what we're about to do, it makes it so much easier. You know that if there's a debit, there's a credit. You just have to know what accounts they go in. So let's do the first one. If I bought supplies on account, what did I gain? Did an asset go up? Okay. So am I going to debit or credit that $100 if I got them? It's on the left side of the big T. The little baby T is going to go up. I happen to see that that's a debit because I bought them. I gained them. That's the normal balance side. That's the increase side. Okay, here's where things get super easy, because if you're confused, here's all of a sudden some clarity. If I debited supplies, what does the other half of the transaction have to be? It's got to be a credit. Am I crediting cash or am I crediting AP? So if that's a debit, this has to be a credit. I see a plus sign, and does that make sense? Do I owe more now? Hold the show. How can a plus equal a plus? Because I've crossed the big divide. Okay. Let's do transaction 2. We paid half of our balance. I see paid, so what's that going to be? We paid half of our balance owed from transaction 1, or $50. So yeah, I always like to start with the debits. I really do, but this is a pretty obvious credit. Would you agree? Is cash being debited or credited here? It's credited because if I put the 50 here, that means cash is going up. I have to put the 50 here because I paid. It went down. So if this is a debit, credit, what does the other half of the transaction have to be? A debit. Okay, so I'm going to put the 50 here, and then I'm going to stop and see if that makes sense. Based on all of my chicken scratch there, on the right side of the T, if we're putting something on the left side, that's a minus. Does that make sense, though? Because now we owe less. Because if we had to stop and turn this into a capital I instead of a T, which I'd like you to do, I'm going to change pen colors here. We can tell that our balance of AP is what? We can tell it's 50, but what if we had to stop and say, let's double check. To turn this T into a capital I. 100 minus 50 is still 50. That's on the credit side. And to tell I'm done with my math, I'm going to double rule. Do our debits equal our credits at this point? Is 100 minus 50 equal to 50? Here's where accounting is black and white. What I want you to take away from today is debits are on the left, credits are on the right. And if you put a debit somewhere, the other half of the transaction or the dual accounting side of things has to be a credit. If you put a credit somewhere, the other half of the transaction has to be a debit. So I always will tell students just know one really good and the other one has to work. And then you see accounting 50 does equal 50. Is this in your notes? Fabulous. I like my way a lot better. Like that was all me. That was not the book presenting it to you. That was me. Because I remember the first time I taught this, I showed them this and they were like, what? We have debits and credits with all of these different things. An asset increasing is a debit. An asset decreasing is a credit. The reverse is true for liabilities and equity. If you get this, then you get accounting. That's all the RAP was talking about. I could draw this. This is on the left side. This is on the right side, an asset. Now, remember, debits are on the left, credits are on the right. But it doesn't necessarily mean increase, decrease, because it matters what side of the big giant divide you're on. Now, revenue follows the same rules. Expenses are naughty. What else is naughty? Drawing. Drawing is naughty as well. So maybe some of you like this version better. Maybe you like looking at it this way and said, I think it looks kind of confusing myself. I just wanted to present that to you because that's how the book presents it. But this is the part of the RAP when assets increasing is a debit. Assets decreasing is a credit. The reverse is true for liabilities and equities, so that's where it's all flipped. If you get this, then you get accounting. And somebody's like, I don't get accounting. I don't get it. I'll play the RAP again, and all of a sudden, now that you've seen it all, it's going to make a lot more sense. On page 58 in your book, which I believe this is a printout, it shows it in this format, which is, again, it's the same thing I've been teaching you. It's just now you've seen a third way of knowing. Remember, debit and credit does not necessarily mean increase, decrease. It depends on what side of the big T you're on. And then this is a naughty account. And this is a naughty account, simply meaning it doesn't follow the debit and credit left-right rules. Because it's making the overall owner's equity go down. So it has to be opposite of what the normal rules are. The equation must balance every time. For every debit, there must be a credit. And that's what my favorite part about this is. If you know the debit, if it says increase in cash, the other part has to be a credit, or vice versa. Try to always start with the debit, but if some's blaringly easy, like you paid cash, well then that's a cash is a credit. Went down. We better watch the RAP one more time. This is a different bunch of folks. I am going to just pause the recording. I'll put both of these RAPs on my website. So if we take a look at the homework, I guess I'd like you to do questions 1 through 9 on page 79. I believe it will be just Q&A that you write in your notebook. Don't feel like you have to tackle the exercises 2, 1, 2, 2, simply because I'd like to do those with you tomorrow. It'll be a nice way for us to review everything as I teach you what you need. So tomorrow we will focus exclusively on end of chapter stuff, because then we're actually going to roll into even just a few more things too. So your homework is questions 1 through 9 on page 79. Be a great time to get started right now, unless you want me to continue playing the RAP. So that's it. We'll put it to practice tomorrow.